The galaxy had learned to fear the apex. For 3,000 years, black ships had swept across star systems like a plague of perfection. Every world that tried to resist them fell within days. Every species that dared to fight back was either enslaved or wiped out completely. The apex did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They simply conquered. Commander Velthane stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars bend and twist as his fleet moved through hyperspace. His tall frame was covered in the dark armor that all apex warriors wore. His pale blue eyes glowed with the cold light of genetic enhancement. Like all members of his race, he had been designed for war from birth. His reflexes were 10 times faster than any natural being. His mind could process battle data faster than most computers. His bones were harder than steel, and his blood carried nanobots that could heal wounds in minutes. Behind him, 300 warships followed in perfect formation. Each ship was a masterpiece of destruction, armed with weapons that could crack planets in half. The crews inside were just as perfect as their vessels. Every soldier, every pilot, every technician had been bred for their specific role. There were no mistakes in Apex society. No waste, no weakness. "Commander," said his tactical officer, a thin woman with the same glowing eyes, "we will reach the target system in 6 hours." Velthane nodded without turning around. The target system was called Sol by its inhabitants, though the Apex had already given it a number in their conquest files. System 4847. It contained one inhabited world, the third planet from its star. The beings living there called themselves humans. The intelligence reports about humans were not impressive. They'd only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and their ships were crude things made of metal and hope. Their weapons were simple projectile launchers and basic energy beams. Most importantly, they were divided. The planet was split into dozens of different nations that spent more time fighting each other than working together. It was a pattern the Apex had seen on countless worlds. "What is the estimated time for complete conquest?" Velthane asked. 72 hours, Commander. Standard protocol suggests we begin with orbital bombardment of their major cities, followed by ground invasion of strategic points. Their military capabilities are estimated at less than 1% of our own. Velthane allowed himself a small smile. Another easy victory, another world to add to the Apex Empire. The humans would learn what every other species had learned before them. Resistance was futile when facing perfection. The Apex had not always been conquerors. Long ago, they had been a normal species on a world called Kethprem. But their scientists had discovered something that changed everything: the ability to edit their own genetic code. They had removed every flaw, every weakness, every random element that made them less than perfect. Disease was eliminated. Aging was slowed to almost nothing. Intelligence was enhanced beyond natural limits, but perfection came with a price. The Apex had lost something in their quest to become flawless. They had lost the ability to adapt, to change, to grow beyond what they had designed themselves to be. So they turned outward, conquering other species to study their genetic patterns. Always searching for new ways to improve themselves, every conquered species was cataloged and studied. The useful ones were kept as slaves or soldiers. The useless ones were destroyed. It was efficient. It was logical. It was perfect. The bridge around Velthane hummed with quiet activity. Officers moved with mechanical precision, their enhanced minds processing information at incredible speeds. No one spoke unless necessary. No one showed emotion. Motion was inefficient. "Sir," another officer reported, "long-range sensors are detecting unusual activity in the target system. The humans appear to be mobilizing their military forces." Velthane finally turned from the viewport. "Mobilizing. They know we are coming?" "It appears so, sir. Our advanced scouts were detected 3 days ago. The humans have recalled their scattered fleets and are forming defensive positions around their home world." This was mildly interesting. Most species either surrendered immediately when they detected Apex ships, or they scattered in panic. Humans were actually trying to fight. It was admirable in a primitive way, like watching insects try to defend their nest from a boot. Show me their fleet composition, Velthane ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing tactical readouts. Of human ships, they were small, fragile-looking things compared to Apex vessels. Their largest battleship was barely a quarter the size of a standard Apex destroyer. Their weapons were projectile-based, relying on kinetic energy rather than the plasma and antimatter. Weapons that the Apex preferred. Pathetic, muttered the tactical officer. They might as well throw rocks at us. But something in the data made Velthane pause. The human fleet formation was ... unusual. Instead of the scattered defensive positions that most species used, the humans had created interlocking fields of fire. Their ships were positioned to support each other, to cover each other's weaknesses. It showed a level of tactical thinking that was rare among primitive species. Increase our approach speed, Velthane commanded. I want to see what these humans are truly capable of. The Apex fleet surged forward through hyperspace, carrying death and conquest toward a small blue world that had no idea what was coming for it. The alarm screamed across Earth as the alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. In the deep underground bunker beneath Sol, General Jinho watched the holographic displays with growing dread. 300 massive ships hung in space like black daggers pointed at humanity's heart. How long do we have? Jinho asked his aide. A young woman named Lieutenant Hygiene, who had been working without sleep for 3 days straight. They're moving at sublight speed, sir. 12 hours until they reach Earth orbit. Jinho nodded grimly. 12 hours to prepare for humanity's first interstellar war. Around him, the command center buzzed with frantic activity as officers coordinated. With military bases across the globe, for the first time in human history, every nation on Earth was working together. The old enemies had become allies in the face of extinction. Captain So-young stood on the bridge of the defense, frigate Taigok, watching her crew make final preparations. Her ship was one of only 50 vessels that Earth could field against the alien armada. It was a pitiful force, but it was all they had. Her crew was just as mixed as the fleet itself, Korean, American, Chinese, Russian, and Japanese officers working side by side. Captain called her weapons officer, a former Chinese naval commander named Wadom. All systems are ready. Missile. Tubes loaded, railguns charged. So-young looked out at the other human ships floating nearby. They were ugly, functional things built for war rather than beauty. Nothing like the sleek alien vessels that were approaching. But they were theirs and they would fight. The Apex fleet had expected to find scattered, panicking defenders. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented. As the alien ships entered the outer solar system, human vessels moved to intercept them in perfect coordination. The defense fleet had been positioned at strategic points throughout the system, ready to strike and fade away like ghosts. Velthane frowned as he studied the tactical display on his flagship. The human response was far more organized than their intelligence had predicted. Instead of clustering around their homeworld in a desperate last stand, they had spread their forces throughout the system. Curious, he muttered. They're trying to make us fight for every light minute of space. His tactical officer looked puzzled. It's inefficient, sir. They're splitting their already weak forces. We can destroy them piece by piece. Perhaps, Velthane said, but something about the human formation bothered him. Something he had seen before in the historical records of Apex conquests. But no species had ever used such tactics against them successfully. The first battle began near Jupiter. A squadron of human destroyers attacked the Apex advance guard, firing everything they had before retreating behind the gas giant's moons. The human ships were fast and maneuverable, darting in and out of the Apex formation like angry hornets. Their weapons were primitive but surprisingly effective at close range. Velthane watched the engagement with growing interest. The humans fought with a desperation he had rarely seen. When their ships were damaged, they didn't retreat. They rammed themselves into Apex vessels, trading their lives for even small amounts of damage to the enemy. Sir, reported his communications officer, we're intercepting human military transmissions. Put them on speaker. The bridge filled with voices speaking in dozens of different languages. Korean pilots coordinating with American gunners, Russian captains taking orders from Japanese admirals. Chinese engineers working with European technicians. It should have been chaos, but somehow it worked. They're adapting their tactics in real time, Velthane's tactical officer said with surprise. Every engagement, they modify their approach based on what they learned from the previous battle. This was troubling. Most species fought the same way from beginning to end, using whatever tactics their military traditions had taught them. But the humans seemed to learn from every mistake, every loss, every small victory. The running battle continued for hours as the Apex fleet pushed deeper into the solar system. The humans fought from behind asteroids, used the gravity of planets to slingshot their ships into attack positions, and even turned some of their own space stations into massive bombs. Every trick they tried was desperate and illogical, but they were causing far more damage than any Apex computer had calculated. Captain, So-Young's ship had been hit 3 times, but she was still fighting. Half her crew was dead or wounded, but the survivors kept working with grim determination. She had seen the alien ships up close now, and she knew humanity was outmatched in every way except one. They refused to give up. Captain Weidong called. From his damaged station, we're getting reports from the other battle groups. The aliens are slowing down. So-Young allowed herself a tiny smile. It was working. The human strategy wasn't to win, that was impossible. It was to make the aliens pay for every kilometer of space. To teach them that conquering Earth would not be the easy victory they expected. In the Apex command ship, Velthane stared at the casualty reports with growing unease. They had lost more ships in this one battle than in their last 10 conquests combined. The humans were not fighting like any species the Apex had encountered before. They were not fighting to win. They were fighting to make their enemies bleed. Sir, his tactical officer said quietly, at this rate of loss, the conquest will take months instead of days. Velthane nodded slowly. The humans had just taught the Apex their first lesson. Perfection meant nothing against an enemy that refused to acknowledge it. 3 months had passed since the first battle, and Earth still burned with defiance. Velthane stood in his private quarters aboard the flagship, staring at reports that made no sense according to everything the Apex knew about warfare. The human resistance should have collapsed weeks ago. Instead, it was growing stronger. On his desk lay intercepted communications from the human military networks. The messages were filled with words that no logical species would use in war. Hope, courage, sacrifice. Most disturbing of all were the recruitment numbers. Every day, more humans joined the fight. Civilians were abandoning their normal lives to become soldiers. Old people were volunteering for suicide missions. Children were learning to build bombs in their schools. This is impossible, Velthane muttered, reading a report about a human factory worker who had destroyed an entire Apex supply depot, using nothing but salvaged explosives and determination. They have a 0% chance of victory. Why do they continue fighting? His personal AI, a sophisticated program designed to analyze enemy behavior, had no answer. Every prediction model suggested the humans should have surrendered after losing half their military forces. Instead, they had somehow convinced their entire population to become combatants. Down on Earth's surface, Dr. Mina worked in what used to be her university laboratory. The building had been hit by orbital bombardment twice, but the underground levels were still functional. She was no longer studying theoretical physics. Now she spent her days trying to reverse engineer captured Apex technology. Around her, students who should have been attending lectures were now assembling improvised weapons. Her research assistant, Young-Soo, had lost his entire family in the first wave of attacks. But instead of breaking him, the loss had made him work 18 hours a day without complaint. Ah! Professor Young-Soo said, looking up from a dismantled Apex communication device. I think I understand how their targeting systems work. Mina hurried over to examine his work. If they could disrupt the alien targeting systems, human ships might actually have a chance in direct combat. It was a long shot, but everything they did now was a long shot. Good work, she said, patting his shoulder. Send the data to the military networks immediately. This was what puzzled Velthane most about the humans. Their scientists were supposed to be primitive, yet they were adapting Apex technology at an impossible rate. It was as if the humans treated every piece of alien technology as a puzzle to be solved, rather than proof of their own inferiority. The Apex commander had started studying individual human soldiers too. Understand their motivation? He had recordings of intercepted radio communications from dozens of battles. In one, a human pilot named Mue had continued attacking even after his ship was crippled and his weapon systems were destroyed. The man had actually tried to ram an Apex cruiser with his burning fighter, shouting something about his daughter's future as he died. It made no sense. The pilot's death had accomplished nothing strategic. His sacrifice had not saved any other human lives or damaged any important Apex assets. Yet the humans treated him as a hero, and his example inspired others to similar acts of pointless bravery. "Sir," his tactical officer entered the room, looking more troubled than Velthane had. "Ever seen an Apex look?" "We have a problem. Another human counterattack." "No, sir. It's our own forces. Some of the younger officers are asking questions." Velthane felt something cold settle in his stomach. Questions were dangerous in Apex society. Their entire civilization was built on the certainty that they were genetically superior to all other life forms. Doubt was a virus that could spread through their ranks faster than any plague. What kind of questions? They want to know why the humans continue fighting when victory is mathematically impossible. They're wondering if our genetic superiority means anything, if we can't predict or control enemy behavior. This was exactly what Velthane had been afraid of. The human resistance wasn't just damaging Apex ships and supplies, it was damaging Apex confidence. For the first time in 3,000 years, Apex soldiers were experiencing uncertainty. Back on Earth, Captain So-Young was planning her next raid against an Apex supply convoy. Her original ship had been destroyed months ago, but she now commanded a makeshift squadron of salvaged human and captured alien vessels. Her crews were exhausted, half-starved, and facing impossible odds, but they still volunteered for every dangerous mission. Captain, her new second-in-command, a former merchant marine named Dalio, spread the tactical display on their improvised briefing table. "The convoy will be protected by at least 6 destroyers. We only have 4 ships that can fight." So-Young studied the data, looking for any advantage they could exploit. The Apex ships were faster, better armed, and better protected, but they followed predictable patterns, and patterns could be broken. "We'll hit them here." She pointed to a spot near Mars orbit. "Use the radiation from the solar storm to mask our approach. Even if we only damage 1 ship, it's worth it." Her officers nodded. They all knew the odds. They all knew most of them wouldn't survive the next battle. But they also knew that every Apex ship they damaged was 1 less ship that could attack. EarthCities.ve, Velthane read the casualty reports from the latest engagement and finally understood what made the humans so dangerous. They didn't fight to win individual battles. They fought to make the war itself unbearable for their enemies. Every loss made them more determined, not less. Every setback taught them new ways to cause pain. The Apex had bred themselves for perfection, but they had accidentally eliminated the one thing that made victory possible: the ability to endure chaos and still keep fighting. The transport ship screamed through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star, its hull glowing red-hot from damage and atmospheric friction. Velthane fought with the controls as alarms blared around him, but it was no use. The reconnaissance mission over the Korean peninsula had gone wrong when human fighters had appeared from nowhere, their crude missiles finding weak spots in his ship's armor that shouldn't have existed. The crash came hard and fast. Velthane's enhanced body absorbed most of the impact, but his ship was completely destroyed. He crawled from the wreckage into a mountain forest, his armor cracked, and his communication systems dead.
Ow.
For the first time in his long life, the Apex commander was truly alone on an enemy world. Dr. Taman was collecting soil samples for radiation analysis when he heard the explosion echoing through the mountains. As a xenobiologist working for the Resistance, he knew that sound meant either a human ship had been shot down or an alien one had crashed. Either way, there might be survivors who needed help or technology that could be salvaged. He found the crash site 2 hours later, following a trail of burning trees and scattered metal. The alien ship was unlike anything in the human database, sleeker and more advanced than the typical Apex fighters they had encountered. And sitting beside the wreckage, trying to repair a damaged piece of equipment, was the enemy himself. Taemin's first instinct was to run. The creature was clearly one of the Apex commanders, tall and pale with those unsettling glowing eyes. His armor was damaged but still functional, and he was probably armed. But something made Taemin pause. The alien looked ... frustrated. He was hitting the device with his fist, making angry sounds in his own language. It was such a human gesture that Taemin almost smiled. "Your power coupling is damaged," Taemin said in English, stepping out from behind the trees. Velthane spun around, his hand moving to his weapon. But he stopped when he saw that the human was alone and unarmed. The creature was small and soft-looking, wearing simple clothes and carrying scientific equipment instead of weapons. Not a soldier, then. A researcher of some kind. "You speak our language?" Velthane asked carefully. "I learned it from your radio transmissions," Taemin replied. "I'm Dr. Taemin. I study alien biology. You're hurt." It was true. Velthane's left arm was badly injured. His healing nanobots were struggling to repair the damage without proper medical supplies. He should kill this human and take his equipment, but something made him hesitate. The creature, Taemin, was looking at him with curiosity rather than fear. "Why are you not running?" Velthane asked. Tae-Min shrugged. "Because you're not shooting, and because I want to understand you." Over the next 3 days, an unlikely partnership formed. Taemin shared his food and medical supplies while Velthane provided protection from both human patrols searching for the crashed ship and Apex recovery teams trying to locate their missing commander. They were both hiding from their own people, which created a strange bond between them. "Your species is remarkable," Taemin said on the second night as they shared a small fire. "Your genetic modifications are more advanced than anything we thought possible." Velthane studied the human's face in the firelight. "Yet you resist us successfully. How is this possible when you are so clearly inferior?" Instead of being offended, Taemin laughed. "Maybe we're not inferior. Maybe we're just different." This conversation continued for hours. Taemin explained how human genetic diversity allowed for rapid adaptation and creative problem-solving. Velthane described the rigid perfection of Apex society and how it eliminated chaos, but also eliminated innovation. They were complete opposites, yet they found themselves agreeing on many things. "Your people fight without hope of victory," Velthane observed. "It is illogical." "Maybe," Taemin replied. "But hope isn't about logic. It's about refusing to give up even when everything looks impossible." On the third day, both their hiding spots were discovered. A human military patrol found their camp. At the same time that an Apex recovery team located Velthane's crashed ship, the two groups faced each other across the small clearing, weapons raised, ready to fight. But something had changed during those 3 days. Velthane stepped in front of Taemin protectively, while the human doctor moved to shield the injured Apex commander. Both groups stared in shock at this unprecedented display of cross-species cooperation. "Wait," Taemin called to the human. "Soldiers, don't shoot. We need to listen to what he has to say." Velthane activated his emergency communicator and spoke rapidly in the Apex language to his rescue team. Both groups lowered their weapons uncertainly as the two unlikely allies faced each other. "There's something coming," Velthane said urgently. "Something that threatens both our species. The deep space monitoring stations detected it 3 days ago. That's why I was on reconnaissance. Not to plan attacks, but to assess your defensive capabilities." Taemin felt his blood turn cold. What kind of something? Ships, thousands of them, coming from outside the galaxy. They're not organic, they're machines, and they destroy everything living in their path. The human patrol leader, a tough sergeant, named Kyung-ho, stepped forward. "Why should we believe you?" Velthane looked at Taemin, then back at the humans. "Because in 72 hours, both our species will be extinct unless we work together." The revelation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Everything they thought they knew about this war was about to change. Emergency Council. Meeting in Seoul's underground bunker was unlike anything in human history. General Jinho sat across from Apex War Marshal Kathvane. while translators worked frantically to convert alien battle data into something humans could understand. The holographic display between them showed a nightmare, thousands of dark shapes, moving through space toward their solar system. The Devourers, Kethvane explained through the translation device. They have been consuming organic life across this galaxy for millions of years. My people thought we were expanding to build an empire, but our genetic memories were actually preparing us for this threat. Dr. Taman stood beside Velthane, both of them exhausted from 3 days of non-stop translation work. The crashed Apex commander had become humanity's most valuable ally, helping them understand technology and tactics that no human could have learned alone. "How long do we have?" General Jinho asked. 18 hours until the first wave reaches Earth's orbit," Velthane replied. "They will not negotiate. They will not retreat. They'll only consume." Captain Soyoung was already aboard her new ship, a hybrid vessel created by combining human engineering with Apex technology. Her crew was half human, half Apex, former enemies, now working together with desperate efficiency. The ship itself looked like nothing either species had ever built, with human improvisation merged with alien precision. "All stations report ready," called Lieutenant Haijin from the communications station. Beside her, an Apex technical officer named Zardin monitored weapon systems that were completely new to both species. The Devourer fleet emerged from hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts. Their ships were geometric nightmares. No curves, no beauty, just angular death machines designed for one purpose. They moved in perfect formation, more coordinated than even the Apex had ever achieved. "My God," whispered Dr. Mina from the defense station on Luna. Around her, human and Apex scientists worked side by side, their old rivalry forgotten in the face of extinction. There are so many of them. The first battle began at the edge of the solar system, the combined human Apex. Fleet was smaller than either force had been separately, but it fought with a coordination that surprised everyone. Apex tactical precision guided human creativity, while human adaptability enhanced Apex efficiency. Velthane commanded the battle from Soyoung's bridge. His tactical expertise combined with her intuitive understanding of chaos. When the Devourer ships tried their standard elimination patterns, they found opponents who could think both logically and illogically at the same time. "They're adapting to our strategies faster than we expected," Velthane reported as the first wave of Devourers pushed deeper into the system. "Then we stop using strategies," Soyoung replied. "All ships pattern Chaos 7.
Random attacks.
No coordination." The Apex officers looked confused, but the human crews grinned. Pattern Chaos 7 was pure human invention, controlled randomness that made prediction impossible. Combined with Apex firepower, it created a battle style that the Devourers had never encountered. Young Su, working frantically in the converted Soul Laboratory, had discovered something crucial about Devourer technology. "Professor Mina," he called excitedly. "Their ships are networked. If we can create a feedback loop in their communication system, ... Mindash understood immediately. The Devourer's greatest strength, their perfect coordination, could become their greatest weaknesses, but they would need both human creativity and Apex technical precision to make it work." The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships from both sides were destroyed, but the Alliance held together. Human captains took orders from Apex commanders, while Apex technical officers implemented wild human modifications to their weapon systems. Every loss taught them something new about their enemy. Dr. Taman found himself coordinating between the military command and the research teams. His unique understanding of both species made him invaluable as a translator, not just of language, but of concepts and ideas that neither side could have developed alone. "The feedback virus is ready," he reported to the combined command staff. "But we need a ship to get close enough to inject it into their network." Soyoung and Velthane looked at each other and nodded. They both knew what needed to be done. Final assault was led by their hybrid ship, diving directly into the heart of the Devourer formation. Human-built missiles carried Apex-designed viruses toward the enemy command vessels. While the crew fought with a combination of desperate courage and calculating precision that neither species could have achieved alone. Virus upload successful, Zardine reported as explosions bloomed around them. The Devourers are losing coordination. Across the solar system, The machine ships began firing on each other as their corrupted network turned them against their own forces. The perfect killing machines became victims of their own efficiency. When the battle ended, the silence was overwhelming. Thousands of Devourer ships drifted dead in space, their threat ended forever by an alliance that should never have been possible. General Jin Ho and War Marshal Kethvane signed the first human apex cooperation treaty in the ruins of the Sol Command Bunker. Around them, exhausted soldiers from both species worked together to rebuild what the war had destroyed. Velthane and Dr. Taman stood together on the observation deck of the new joint colony ship, watching Earth and the apex homeworld both visible in the distance. The two species had learned something that neither had understood before. True strength came not from perfection, but from the courage to change and grow. The apex had been fearsome alone, but with humanity's chaotic brilliance guiding their ordered strength, they had become something the universe had never seen before, truly invincible protectors of all organic life.